What is going on, guys? It is Adam, a.k.a. Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. This is a live show today. We are going to go over everything that has just transpired. Of course, the ban on Russian oil. We're going to talk about, of course, everything that we have talked about over on our other channel, plus much, much more. So stick around. We'll be right back right after this. Nothing in the show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. I can't say thank you enough. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, a.k.a. Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. Tonight, we have a ton to go over in a short amount of time, so just in case you are new, remember you can go over to marfooglenews.com and follow along. You can grab a second device, grab some popcorn, and, of course, probably a new pair of underwear after tonight. And then, of course, make sure to follow along over on the website. You'll see that it is all organized by the thumbnail. So you will look for what's hitting the pump. And then, of course, once you get there, you'll click on that, and it'll bring you to every single article, tweet, video, picture, document that we archive on our website every single night that are searchable and cross-referenceable. And, of course, that is all available at your fingertips. Now, on top of that, once you get to tonight's show, you'll see that there is a yellow bar about halfway down. Once you get to that, that is the web-only content. That is essentially the stuff that is too hot for TV, the stuff that they don't want you to see or don't want anybody to talk about. That is all down there. So make sure to go check that out. There's a ton down there. It's a whole nother show in itself. Plus, it takes a lot of time to put together, so make sure to go over and, again, use that. Now, at the very end, we'll talk about how you can win an EMP shield. Over on the right side, if you do want to support us, we're independent, so any of the boxes over there are affiliate links. That means that if you do purchase something, it will give the channel a commission of the sale. Not to mention, we only pick products that we think will make your life better or essentially save lives in some way or another. So let's bring in my co-host / internet brother, Dex James. What is going on tonight, and how are you doing?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I am doing just fine.
So the whole thing with gas today, Dex, this is pretty big because they finally did what everybody has been screaming about for weeks now, saying, you know, every sanction that hit, it didn't really matter because we were still using the gas and oil from Russia. Most people were like, okay, you did all of this, but you didn't touch the energy sector. That is what essentially happened today, correct?
Yeah, and what we saw was, and it's part of what everybody's screaming about. It's just, you know, for right now, we're not buying any, and I think UK and maybe some other countries got on board, but we didn't buy a lot. I think it was like 4% of our total imports, so that's probably still a significant amount of money to Russia. But a small percentage of our entire, think about the entire oil consumption or import oil consumption, is pretty small. I think the big thing that a lot of people want to see happen next is whether or not they do a full-on embargo where no one can get it, which would really be an act of conflict, so to speak. And then secondarily, like, why are we not tapping more into our own to help get these prices back down? Because I think that's what everyone is going to feel is this massive hit in the pocketbook.
Yeah, and it was already bad. It was up at $5 where I live in Washington. Some places, I believe somebody said that they were in California hitting 550 and 560. Now, I don't know what it is nationwide as far as the average, but the average has gone up just extremes. By the way, speaking of which, Paul, thank you for the super chat. That's not necessarily necessary. You might need that for gas tomorrow. But again, thank you. And if that was a mistake, if you meant to do a $10 super chat, appreciate you either way. And again, I never say anything if you have to retake that back. Again, thank you so much, Paul. I appreciate that. Elizabeth Edwards, thank you so much. I appreciate you subscribing. Same with Wait a Minute, John Buck, and Belinda Brown. Again, thank you, Paul. Thank you for supporting Independent. Joseph Newhouse, probably the first one, actually. First one out before we even started, says, bro, new video, Elon Musk warns of AI advancement. Yes, well, I mean, that's what he fears more than, say, a nuclear conflict. He says that AI is a bigger threat. And I'm starting to believe him. Some of the things that have come out that nobody is talking about and that is on the back page, very scary. Some Black Mirror stuff, if you know what I mean. By the way, if there was a Black Mirror episode with the robot dogs. So scary because it is so realistic, so incredibly realistic. If you know that black and white episode with the robot dogs in the warehouse, that was terrifying. Why it's terrifying is because it very well, it will happen. It's probably already there. As far as the trackers getting impaled into people's skins and stuff, pretty crazy. And then, so just to go over what officially happened for those of you that don't follow the mainstream and what is happening, and most of you have tuned out of CNN and FOX and all of these three-letter agencies like CIA. They are essentially telling us that the President B has stopped taking oil or the gasoline from Russia. But UK and other countries are still doing it. And in his speech, which we watch all of their speeches, all of the White House speeches, all of the National Security Advisor speeches, we do that so you don't have to. We suffered through those. He was basically saying, we know that we have the ability to not do it, but we know that other countries, they don't have the ability to just quit, right? We can't just quit Russia. First of all, we have been an adversary with Russia for a very long time, and most of you are probably like common sense, like, why did we have so much dependence on our adversaries? It makes zero sense. I could see importing wood or actually that's quite important too. I could see importing trinkets or novelties or something like that, or toys or non-essentials. But we have been dependent on China and Russia for very, very crucial things. Russia less so, but China, APIs, active pharmaceutical ingredients, 97% of our APIs come from China. That goes into making life-saving antibiotics. About 90% of the actual made, all done, ready to take antibiotics come from China in the U.S. Now, that is absolutely stupid. We are dependent on Taiwan for our semiconductor chips. Now, most of the world is as well. So it's like, you've got all of these different countries depending on sometimes small countries or sometimes big countries for the stuff. And they're technically not even aligned with these countries. Who made that decision? They blow billions of dollars. They put billions of dollars in politicians' pockets instead of saying, hey, why don't we take the $2 billion we greased that guy's pocket with and build a factory that makes those? Now, the State of the Union just about a week ago, President B terrified a lot of people because of how he talked and what he was talking. It was very, very clear. It was like a bad B movie. You could see what's coming next. He said that all of a sudden he has changed his tune and we're going to make everything in America and we're building our own semiconductor chip factory here in the United States. Well, why are we doing that? Well, most likely, very, very soon, we are going to lose Taiwan and we are going to lose that chip factory. It's almost like in that speech, he was like, oh, by the way, I'm going to let them have that too. It seems like that to many of us. And I'm just going to put a prediction, and this is just my opinion. I think they will take Taiwan and will do the same circle of sanctions, if anything. And we will not have semiconductor chips, and everything else is going to go up. So we are at a period right now where everything is about to skyrocket. So that's why, again, we are telling you, things are somewhat reasonable and people aren't panic buying because it's the last of something. Go out and just get a little bit at a time. We've told you this before, and most of you should be just stocked up by now, because if you got just even a couple extra gallons of water every time that you went to the store, you would have a ton. That's what we're saying. We're not saying go out and buy pallets. We're saying go out and get a couple things, because it will come into play later. That is my opinion. And that's coming from, we have a huge group of military in here. We have high-ranking officials that watch. We've had messages, of course, from different factors of people in government, and they all say they love our show and that, that we're doing great. So again, thank you everybody for getting us to that point by coming every single night, by pushing us up on a pedestal. I really appreciate you guys, and I am so blessed to have such a great group of people around me, and you guys are what makes this show. So thank you. Just want to get that out of the way. Lynn Heistroffer, thank you so much. Thank you as well. Toss Dare from Australia says, thanks for hanging in there for everyone, Marf, Dex, and Mods. Take care all. Mods, especially, thank you guys for sticking with us for so long. Most of my mods have been with me for over 3 years. Mr. Nobody, thank you for all you've done, Marf and Dex. Without you guys, I would have been way less prepared. Much love from California. So that's what we actually like to hear, as far as people that are already prepared. When the shelves first totally got wiped out from CV, a lot of people said that they were completely fine. They didn't even have to go to the store because they had those extra things. That's what we're saying now. Just look at the patterns. Look at how things have progressed. There are steps up to this thing, and it happens in baby steps until all of a sudden you're like, whoa, how did this happen? So just remember that. With gas is about to go up, and we don't know how high, but it's definitely not going to be fun. Again, not going to be fun here. Saudi UAE leaders declined calls with President B amid the Ukraine conflict. So this is another thing you'll see in WW3 is people and countries taking sides, different factions kind of switching over. Dex, what do you think about Saudi Arabia declining our calls? Isn't that kind of unusual?
Well, yeah, and I thought it was crazy because it came out like, oh, we're going to ban Russian oil, and now we're going to get on the phone with Saudi next, right? And I'm like, okay, so that just means you're trying to make up for that loss, and you're going to go over there and buy it, and as opposed to getting it from ourselves, because we have plenty of it. So yeah, I don't know what to make of their position, if it's really a position, or if they just didn't want to get involved. Maybe they're trying to stay out of it, or if they're literally taking a side. But it's obviously it's in their interest for these oil prices to go up as long as people still use it, right? Because they just make more and more money.
Well, just a reminder, can you let people know what happened with the Keystone Pipeline and what happened and what that was for people?
Yeah, so that was a huge pipeline that we were building to bring oil in and from Alaska, and it got shut down the day after our current administration showed up. Or like one of the first things he did was can that whole operation. In addition to stopping the leasing of parcels where you can drill and explore for oil, and a few other things that caused our ability to produce our own to diminish significantly, or to not grow at the pace it needed to grow. We were at one point we were making more and selling more, and now we're making a lot less ourselves. So we're having to buy it and bring it in.
So essentially, we would have not been dependent on other countries. Now, some say, well, we're weighing out the climate and the world and the environment, and some are saying, the economy. They're looking at both on a scale and saying which one's more important. Well, in conflict times, I don't know if that's going to change people's opinions, but I saw what's her face Tulsi Gabbard say, well, at least put a pause on the world thing. You have to understand that nobody's trying to offend, so everybody's trying to tiptoe around it, and she's trying to say that because she doesn't want to offend anybody at the same time. Go ahead, Dex.
Yeah, the other thing, did you see Elon? Elon has said two different things. One, he said we ought to be getting our own oil again, because he knows that even though he's in the EV market, EVs aren't the solution today, and you can't scale it up and say, okay, well, we have a gas crisis, so let's just all turn on EV cars, because it just doesn't happen, right? That's an evolutionary thing that's going to happen over time. So he said, hey, we should be getting our own oil again. And then the other thing he said was he told Europe and others that you should start turning on your nuclear plants again. That they were running, they work, and you should, when you're in the middle of a crisis like this, that's the time to turn it. It's actually not a bad thing to do. So it was kind of interesting coming from someone who you would think is obviously a proponent of green, and he still is, but he also is speaking with a sense of reality.
Now, so a couple important things with the UAE and declining the call. It says there was some expectation of a phone call, but it didn't happen. A U.S. official told the Journal regarding a call between President B and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. It says it was part of a turning on the spigot of Saudi oil. Now, it says that there's problems, that Mohammed bin Zayed also declined a call from President B, according to the officials. It says officials told the outlet that the U.S. relations with the two Gulf countries have been strained over the B administration's lack of support in the conflict in Yemen and the revived negotiations concerning the eye to the store nuclear deal, which everybody that I know was puzzled by that. They were like, leading them back into letting them do stuff again when they're making videos of taking out President T and everything else. Maybe they were like, oh, well, just make enough nukes to take out your enemy so then I don't have to run against anybody. I don't know. Saudi Arabia has also been pushing for legal immunity in the U.S. for Prince Mohammed, who is accused of taking out a journalist in 2018, which, if you remember that, where apparently this part of his body was separated from this part of his body in kind of I want to say like an office building. And they were like, oh, here's kind of like you show up to an interview and you leave without a body. O'Reilly Gay, thank you so much for subscribing. Lynn Weistroffer and Stephen McMahon heading off to work. God bless you all, network. Thank you, everybody that has popped in. Mr. Nobody, again, Eileen Simpson and Stephen McMahon, again, thanks for the support. Elizabeth Edwards, everybody that just popped in, thank you, everybody. Pop, pop, pop. Vladimir Putin dying in agony from terminal cancers, and pics show his pain, say sources. So this is actually the second time that this has popped up. The first was the guy that they were investigating, the Russian supposed whistleblower that said that Putin was dying. Now, Dex, do you think that this could be because they're trying to paint a narrative that he's doing all of this because he thinks he's going to die, and this is more propaganda to like get people to think like, oh, he's dying, so he's going to his drive to reunite the USSR?
So it's like it like creates this impression that there's an excuse for either the bad things that have happened or the bad things that are about to happen that you would think are unconscionable. Why would somebody actually do that? And they're sort of painting a picture. Oh, well, there's a madman behind the controls there. So that certainly is one angle we can take from this. And I think, we sort of have to obviously take this stuff with a huge grain of salt, but it is also interesting when you look at the perspective that this person or these people have when they've been analyzing the information about them. And there's coming from the intelligence community, which I will say is really good at gathering and putting together intelligence, but they're also the same community that's really good at gathering and creating Ganda. So it goes both ways.
Yep, exactly. So they could totally be making this whole thing up. Mind you, this was something we covered a week ago before any mainstream articles hit, because There were kind of these sideline Reddit things, and then this guy that was talking about it. Then some of his words hit a couple world news outlets. So we covered that. Now, watch, it's going to start becoming something that is more mainstream. Usually just by covering other countries and by covering some of the smaller outlets, we've been able to get a kind of a jump on what they are going to be talking about the next week. So if you haven't subscribed, make sure to do so. And everyone, I just ask, please, if you can, press that like button if you enjoy the show, or even if you find value in what we are doing. I really do appreciate it. I see 5,000 in chat all the time, and we don't usually get to that until afterwards, until 60,000 views. So even if the chat alone could do that, that would help us. Right now, everything is getting hit because of what we are covering. Everything. So we appreciate all of you for sharing this out. It's like all of it is from homepage. Basically, everybody's finding us on their homepage because you're already subscribed. Anybody to find this channel that is not subscribed, you have to share it out. It was something like 1% recommended. That's the lowest it's ever been. So obviously they're turning down the faucet a lot. I think like 13% recommended was, part of our stats, but now it's like 1%. So please share it out. They're trying to turn down every kind of alternative source here. U.S. nuclear forces chief very concerned by Russia and China cooperation. This is this is what we've talked about forever. And again, this is something that's going to start popping up more and more, and they're going to be talking about it very soon here. It says, in the wake of Russia and China's strengthened ties, the U.S. general who oversees America's nuclear forces said Tuesday he is, quote, very concerned about potential cooperative aggression from the two nations. It says, as China refuses to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and a day after China's foreign minister called Russia his country's most important strategic partner, U.S. Strategic Command's chief, Admiral Chas Richard, said that his organization must have plans ready for scenarios in which the two collaborate. He says, quote, I'm very concerned about the opportunistic aggression and what it looks like. I'm worried about what cooperative aggression looks like. Richard told the Senate Armed Services Committee, adding that his command's job includes deterring them both, alluding to Russia and China's growing arsenals and Russia's recent nuclear saber rattling. Richard said that the U.S. must further re-examine the capability, capacity, and posture of America's strategic forces. He suggested that all of these would have to be reassessed continuously. It says, we do not know the endpoints of where either of those or other two are going, either in capability or capacity. We're just now starting to work out what the three-party stability looks like, what three-party deterrence dynamic works out. So, Dex, do you remember when we covered on, because we watched the Chinese media? Do you remember when I found that piece about? Do you remember when I found the piece about how the two fronts and how China is essentially writing these op-eds and their official mouthpieces are telling their people, like, we can't handle one front, let alone two. Does it seem like now we are kind of on that same thing right now, that we're now talking about seeing the two fronts?
Yeah, it certainly looks that way. I think one of the things we have to take into consideration is the role of this person. So he's in charge of all of our nuclear defense and in some regards probably offense. And what do we do, and how do we deal with that type of event if it actually ever comes to some sort of fruition where we have to launch? And I think the challenge, and this is interesting because I've always heard that we've always said, hey, if we go into a conflict with Russia, we have to go into a conflict with China at the same time, no matter what, right? In other words, if the missiles are going to start flying, then we've had to have plans to handle both at the same time, and probably even NK, even though they're smaller, but they're armed as well. So how do we, that would have been our strategy. And what I'm hearing here is I'm saying, hey, this is kind of difficult, and we need to think differently about how we do it, because we aren't really, in a situation where we know how to deal with both of them together at the same time, which is kind of odd, because it does seem different than what I had been led to believe with our strategic command and how they had planned and operated, especially over the last, say decade or so.
Because we've seen that, and then when you kind of take this into account of what Maria, and I keep her name is almost exactly like one of the Fox News contributors. What is that, Maria Bartiromo or whatever? There's Maria Bararova. I'll get her name right later when we read it, but she is editor-in-chief for RT, and she is saying that she believes that we are going to hit them. And she's even quitting her job, and supposedly she's got a target on her back, and she's saying things against the country, which could be 15 years prison time if she says the wrong thing. And she's giving up her highly paid, extremely cush job as an editor-in-chief at RT. So she's basically saying, I wouldn't give all of that up if I believed we were going to live very long lives. I'll read that quote later, but it's like, what is propaganda here, and what are the odds that maybe some of this is true? We have to assume that there's a percentage of all of this that is a tiny bit of truth mixed in with whatever kind of back and forth ganda that they have going. So it's like we all have to look at this and say, well, what should we prepare for? At the very least, even if you are skeptical of all of this, you're probably on the side that you think that they may try to do something really absurd or something to trigger the then public response and the public outcry, something to change the world, something to justify something bad happening there. If you remember, in 2001, that event set off a huge chain of events. Just to use that for an example, of course, that brought in Homeland Security, that brought in the Patriot Act, that brought in a ton of changes, including what Edward Snowden came out with later. That all stemmed from 2001. It was for our safety. We were being watched and listened to and tracked and spied on for our safety, for your safety, for your children's safety. Just get a grip, man. It's for your safety we're watching you through your Samsung TV. So just think about this. What if, and it's just really leading us into, we know that one of the first parts, and all of this could happen all at once. You're talking about a cyber attack, and then possibly a physical attack, and then something else. Most people think that the U.S. is still geographically safe. It is no longer that way. China and Russia have both worked out ways to get across oceans now. We used to have a kind of big buffer zone. That buffer zone is still there to a point, but it is definitely shrank. There are certain actions that China took. So if they were to go to conflict with us, they would have ways to get over here, to get over to Taiwan, to get over to Japan, such as turning the cargo ships and everything else that they've been making. Any commercial ship also has the ability to take troops and transport tanks and everything else. Their civilian ferries have ramps that actually drop down as landing vehicles. These things work as a military vehicle. They passed a law to make that so. They said, hey, if you're a commercial company that manufactures civilian ferries, say they're going from one part of China to the next, just across a little waterway, that ferry is actually being made with wartime specifics in mind. That's just part of their rules now. And it has been. They've been practicing destroying our carriers in the desert. They have been practicing dealing with our defenses. So it's like, and then we know publicly we are practicing on how to defend against them. We are practicing how to defend against thousands and thousands of drones. Look at the money. Look at where the money is going into defenses and offenses. We watch all of this is stuff we covered over the last 3 years, And all of the deadlines got moved up and have already finished. I would like you to also realize we talked about a lot of deadline, like for amphibious vehicles and island hopping things and silencers and night vision and everything you would need for urban warfare. A lot of those deadlines got moved up from 2027, 2024, 2023. A lot of those are already done. So why are they already done? Why did so many of them get done so quickly? And then why are things happening like DHS asking these manufacturing companies to come up with mass fatality tracking systems? They are coming up with wearable radiation detectors, coming up with rapidly deployable checkpoints. Think about this, folks. This was all in one go that they wanted these companies to make these and have a deadline by December of last year. Rapidly wearable, rapidly deployable checkpoints and broadband walkie-talkies that can go 3,000 miles, which if you always see the military stuff, it goes military and then it goes to the public. It's kind of funny because Nokia actually just came out with a phone. It's not a phone. I think it says it has some sort of SIM card or something, but it's a different system, and it's a 3,000-mile walkie-talkie, so you can talk from New York to L.A. I just thought that was funny timing, considering that they just asked companies to come up with that, and those companies probably said, well, hey, can we also sell this to the public? Dex, did you realize that? Nokia came out just recently, right after... in January, announced that they have these 3,000-mile walkie-talkies, and nobody's putting together that this was just asked for by December 5th of last year by DHS. So what else on that list is now real?
Yeah, and yeah, what else is on the list, right?
Yeah, a lot of stuff with as far as like viral stuff, everything that has to do with radiation, everything that has to do with a kind of urban warfare. So it's like, look at all the facts,
right?
It's the signs. That's right. Now, Eileen Simpson, thank you so much for popping in. Thanks for your support. Thank you for sticking around with us. And then as far as this gentleman saying all of this, this is all part of a bigger picture. Speaking of big picture here, that's pretty good. All right, and then before we move on, we're going to be talking about all of the companies that are suspending. I do want to remind you right now, there is a contest going. We'll talk about that at the very end of the show. But if you do want to get your EMP protection as soon as possible, go over to marfuglenews.com/EMP. This, in the event that we do have a full grid down, a full EMP or CME hit us, whether it be from the sun or from NK, Russia, China, or whoever else that is practicing to do it, this can protect your generators, your motorcycles, your RVs, your cars, of course, your house, all of the different things that you want to keep running after an EMP or multiple EMPs or a CME. This is the device to do it. This is the same company that was not only mentioned by the EMP resilience report by the DHS, but DHS, DOD, and others have had EMP do work for them. In fact, they were part of that emergency executive order that T-Man signed before he left office. And then, of course, that put into place where they were going to kick off hardening our grid. As we know, the very first day of the next prez, a lot of that got slowed down. So pretty much anything that the previous prez did, and a lot of it was like stuff that was bipartisan support, all across the board. Like, this is smart. Like fixing a pothole in front of a children's hospital. It's like a lot of the stuff got erased. It was like out of spite. It was like, oh, he did it, so let's undo it. So just remember, if you do want to protect yourself, there's ways to do it. And if you haven't looked into these are the most legit, military tested, Keystone tested way to do it. Go over to EMP Shield, marfuglenews.com/EMP. You can't, of course, get this after an EMP. You can't get it after a CME. So it's something that you needed yesterday. Again, thank you everybody that goes over. If you do, you will get rewarded. You get $50 off per device. So if you need to do your car, generator, and house, you will get $150 off. That's how it works. So again, make sure to go over marfooglenews.com/EMP. You will help out our channel at the same time, and you will get a massive discount. Again, stay tuned for the end. We will talk about how you can win one. All right, and then iconic U.S. brands Coca-Cola, Pepsi, McDonald's, and Starbucks suspend business in Russia. So I wonder if the actual stores with Russian employees are closing, or do you think that the Russian kind of stores are going to be staying open? That's one question I have for them. And are they just not shipping Coca-Cola there? If they have Coca-Cola, companies or factories there, do those factories then shut down? Or if you have, these franchises owned by Russians, those don't close, right? So I'm just wondering if this is even affecting them if they have franchises there.
Yeah, I think the way the main way it's going to work is just use McDonald's as an example. Yeah, they're a major franchise, so they probably have franchise operations in Russia to support their franchisees. And if McDonald's shuts down franchise operations and says we're not sending any of commissary or any of buns, cut fries, burger patties, any of that stuff that goes into the cooler that the franchisee is basically getting, then they're ineffectively not going to be able to be open because they won't have anything to sell. So,
but in a big
and the
country,
other thing I heard was they were actually paying the employees. I don't know if they're doing it at the franchisee level, but McDonald's I'd heard said they were still going to pay the Russian employees that were employed, even though they were shutting down the operation for now, or suspending it, I guess is what the proper word.
Well, and that's the other thing. It's like how much of this affects the actual Russian people that have nothing to do with the actions of the government, right? Because it's Putin doing this, not the Russian people. It's not them that are pulling the trigger on all this, or potentially getting screwed over. We don't know. But as far as McDonald's, maybe they have a computer system as far as they could shut down their ability to take transactions or something. I don't know. But we'll see how it goes. We've seen a lot of really just funky stories. Everybody is standing with Ukraine, or standing up for all of this. But and now there's anti-Russian hate, right? Everybody's changing their name. If anything has Russian in it, it's being changed. For example, in this has the Stolichnaya vodka, which now they're renaming it to basically Stoli again, but to reflect their Latvian roots, right? Go ahead, Dex.
Yeah, I heard a brief comment on Tucker tonight, and I didn't get to catch it all. But the point he was making, I thought was interesting, is even during the Cold War, even during Stalin and other periods of time where we've had major conflict with Russia, basically, or the USSR, and even during a time when they were attacking Ukraine and unfortunately killing millions of people there, we still traded with them. Like trade has always gone on during conflict at certain levels, right? It was never done the way we're doing it now. Like what we're doing now is pretty extreme, and it's kind of an interesting to watch it play out, because it is, for a major country like that, this is extreme, because even during the Cold War, we still did trade with them. Even during all these other events in the history, the U.S. and other countries still traded with them.
Yeah, that's why, to many people that ask, how is this any different? This is the first time for this is the first time for a ton of things. Same with CV, the first time that the entire world of this generation closed down and did all of these different things. It's like it was almost like that was a dry run to have everybody on the same page. And if you weren't on the same page, you wouldn't be in the book at all. In fact, your book would be buried 6 feet underground. Stormblade X69 Bonsai, thank you so much for the support over on DLive. Thank you, T-Man Red Pill, Stormblade X69. Again, thank you, T-Man Red Pill. Thank you so much for the support with the Ninja Genie over on DLive. Thank you, everybody that has popped in. Annie Lepeau, we've got really One on B, Mr. No Lip, and Bear Claws. Thank you, everybody. Moxie71 and Maui Racing Realtor, thank you. Mercer1, thanks for gifting out badges. You guys are great. Thanks for keeping DLive alive, and thanks for just keeping it really awesome over there. And then, yeah, this is a first for many things. So we're gonna see a lot more firsts, and I'll talk to you guys probably in the next couple days. What I can say from a couple of the military members here. I don't think it's prudent to say yet, and I want to make sure that we do not unnecessarily scare anybody. But make sure to stay tuned the next couple days if you can, or watch the highlights on news. The next few weeks of fighting in Ukraine will be ugly. That is what the CIA director warns. U.S. intelligence officials say that the Kremlin has loosened the rules of engagement in Ukraine as advances have slowed. It says, as the war in Ukraine nears the 2-week mark, the U.S. intelligence community says that the Russian forces have clearly adopted looser rules of engagement to try to achieve their objectives as their advances have stalled. And by the way, my personal opinion is if their advances have stalled, that means they're parked up and they're taking a break. I don't think that they're actually getting stopped. That's what makes people kind of wonder if everybody's in on this. At the same time, it remains unclear if the Kremlin will actually be able to take over the entire country or even try to install a new pro-Russian gov. It says the Russian officials may instead find some other way to declare victory amid mounting losses and crippling international sanctions. Before getting into the most recent news, let's see here. Okay, so here's a good part. We assess Moscow underestimated the strength of Ukraine's resistance and the degree of internal military challenges we are observing. Okay, we have not seen any proof of that. First of all, we have seen some TikTok videos from, like 4 or 5 people putting handmade jacks in the street and saying that they're stopping tanks. The only way they're stopping tanks with little 6-inch kind of jacks or tire poppers and stuff like that is that they are doing it because those Russian people don't want to maybe possibly take out their brothers or their cousins or whoever, that they're told not to take out civilians. What I don't understand is Russia does have an advanced military. Is this playing into the narrative that Russia is behind or has crappy military? I mean, Dex, do you think that Russia's giving it their all right now? Because it really, there's no proof to say that. They've got advanced air force that can go in there and just decimate them.
Yeah, well, I don't think even when we would go into a country, like we've done operations in the ME, we didn't bring our all. We brought exactly what we thought we needed, and I would assume that that's what they did was they brought what they thought they needed, and maybe a little more, but not the entire kitchen sink, right? Because for starters, you don't want to risk all of your entire, military equipment, everything that you have, and on just one thing. You sort of need to pace yourself. So I don't know. I don't know if they underestimated. I don't know if we're just being given a whole lot of ganda that makes us think that. Maybe their intentions weren't as big as we have made it out to be. So therefore, if they're really just doing what they were intended to do, then maybe it is a lot less. But if we overhyped it on this side of the Ganda machine, then we would look at it and say, look, they can barely do anything because they're so small, right? So we were told it's really difficult. We were told that they put 40 miles of their military vehicles on a single road and just drove it right in. Like, oh yeah, Ukraine doesn't have an air force. We'll just drive a line of millions or billions of dollars worth of gear in a single line and just give it to them. We'll just line the ducks up for them. I'm sorry, I still do not believe that they went in with that, and the few pictures or even a video, maybe that's 100 tanks that they show in the video. It's like that could be just painted tanks. That could be the same tanks. Remember when just a couple weeks ago they showed on the Russian side, or what was it? It was on the Russian side a Ukrainian built tank.
and they said that they won it by one of the battles or something, and it or was it a Russian tank on the Ukrainian side? Wasn't that what it was? That it was like, or it was designed in Ukraine, but they said it was Russians doing it, and you start to wonder, like, or were
their equipment's the same for a lot of things. It's the same, right?
So they just paint something on it.
Right, and a lot of times they would say, "Oh, look, this Russian tank did this," and then like 3 days later, it comes out, "Oh, by the way, nobody bothered to look for the white stripe that they painted on it, so maybe it really wasn't a Russian tank; it was a Ukraine tank." But then again, it could have been washed off or wiped off to, conceal the evidence that it was Russian that did it and try to make it look like Ukraine, or it was Ukraine that did it, try to make it look like Russia. Who knows at this point, right?
Well,
it's almost crazy.
In the case I was talking about, it was a very specific shape of the roof, and it was by a very specific builder in Ukraine. And there's a picture that supposedly shows that it's Russians with this tank. And the way they explained it is that the Russians took it in a battle. And I'm thinking, what if that's Ukrainians with a Ukrainian tank dressed up as Russians? Or if it's a double Fantastic Freddy or something. I don't know. That it's Russians with a Ukrainian tank dressed up as Russians, but trying to pretend like they're in what the shopper scrambles for staples as the food fallout from conflict in Ukraine spreads around the world. It says the shockwaves in global crop markets from Russia's invasion of Ukraine are now spreading to store shelves. Worries about surging sunflower oil's prices triggered heavy buying over the weekend in Turkey as footage of citizens trying to grab tins of cheaper oil at one store went viral. In Egypt, the world's biggest wheat importer, prices for some unsubsidized bread have jumped in the past week. The conflict has already driven up wheat prices 70% higher in Chicago this year and is threatening to upend global food trade. Russia and Ukraine are vital suppliers of grains, vegetable oils, and fertilizers, which means that supply disruptions will be felt all over the world. Wheat prices have surpassed levels last seen during the 2008 global food crisis, which helped spark widespread protests, and a United Nations index of food prices hit a record in February. The shockwaves of global crop markets from Russia's invasion of Ukraine are now spreading to store shelves. Worrying about surging sunflower oil prices triggered heavy buying over the weekend in Turkey as footage of citizens trying to grab their tins. And it says that the conflict, hold on here. The current concern over sunflower oil prices is related to imports stuck at ships in the Sea of Azov, the northeastern tip of the Black Sea, according to the Ahmet Atissi, Secretary General of the Vegetable Oil Industry Association. Russia should let those ships go, Atissi said. The group sent a letter to the Trade Ministry earlier this month warning that current supplies may last only to mid-April. So this will be used as well for as far as the prices everywhere going up, and this is just one more kind of signifier that there is going to be price raises on almost everything. Dex?
Well, yeah, and if you guys remember, last night we talked about the report coming out of China that their wheat production was probably the worst ever. Okay, and that they've just had a major failure on wheat production this year on their crops. So these are two completely separate issues that are going to really hit the food market significantly. So keep that in mind, because what we're hearing here is, hey, by the way, Russia and Ukraine produce a lot of wheat, which is true, they do. They are very large producers of it. And then add to that the fact that China just came out and said that they have an issue with it. And, of course, we've got supply chain issues and everything else that's been in here. I'm sure maybe you're not worried about sunflower oil because it might not be part of your daily staple like it is on another country.
In Turkey.
But thinking about just wheat, which is very generic and used in just about everything, this is a double whammy, so to speak, to our potential food economy and food pricing.
This is driving a global collapse of the entire economy, the entire system. I hope people are waking up right now, because in every area something is happening, and it becomes where it's little tiny things once a day. So yesterday they of course tell us, oh, almost all the wheat is gone in China. Now they're telling us all of this stuff is going to hit, and Russia's now suffering from this wheat shortage. And then, of course, with the supply chain issues, with the ships that are still sitting out off of the bay, off of the West Coast, all of this stuff that is going to all of a sudden add up. This is why I called this show All at Once. It's really, really, I'm sorry, my show earlier, All at Once is because everything is going to hit us all at once. And that's why people that prepare are way better off, because you end up sitting through these things and it's like nothing's going on. That's why if you set aside, it's just like saving money for a rainy day. We're about to see a lot of rain. So I hope people realize that and pay attention, because it's a bad B movie. You are all seeing it. Most of you don't need to be told twice. This is not going any better, and it's gonna only get worse. So please, for the sake of everything else, Dex, go ahead.
Yeah, and we've said this before, and it's worth repeating. When you're dealing with price hikes and inflation and the foreseeable future, having that, to look forward to, the best thing you can do is buy stuff that you're actually going to use, right? Buying things that you need, buying them now. Like if you're going to use, if you can store gasoline, great. I mean, that's probably the worst example because it's not easy to store. But if you can, buy certain things, buy wheats and store them, buy other things and store them that you're going to use throughout the next year. If you're buying them now, you're saving money, because if 6 months from now it's double, it's costing you double. So, that's the best way to sort of, fend off against these high inflationary prices, is to try to get the things you need today. If you can get them before the prices go up, and buy more of what you need. So I know it's not easy for everyone. It's not always but there's even simple things. Just taking the gas example, instead of driving your gas tank down to E, if you fill it up every quarter of a tank, or even every day, then you're what's called dollar averaging. In other words, you may be riding that gas price up, but you're actually saving money because you're picking up on the lower price each day before it goes up the next day.
Exactly. You're getting it on the far end instead of the front end, or the front end instead of the far end. Eileen Simpson, again, thank you. I want to say exactly what Irish Rebel just said. Okay, so Irish Rebel, thank you for your massive support this week. We really do appreciate you supporting Independent. Says, one of my long-term food storage companies suspended their wholesale program until further notice. This is a big thing. So this wheat and everything else, that's going to go into long-term food. As far as you're talking about, just like we said, like with Patriot Supply and things like this, Patriot Supply hasn't raised their prices in a while. We'll just go over to that because, that's perfect timing. So again, go over to marfooglenews.com/prep. Companies like this, what Irish Rebel said essentially is the person, the company that he goes through, just basically suspended their whole, the whole bulk food program. And this is what we are going to see. This is why we thought of this a year ago, because this is something that was even told to us by our military groups, that a lot of these long-term food supply companies would go out. And then it happened. If you remember last year and the year before that, CV was going on, a lot of these companies, Patriot Supply kept open, I believe, the whole time. A lot of them ran out of almost everything, especially when people were panic buying. It was insane. You could go to the websites of most of these big companies, and it would be like every food was out. That's because they... all of the things that is going on in the world, that's affecting these companies as well. The way that they package them, the package materials, everything is about to just fall apart. And my personal opinion is that this is quite purposeful in a lot of ways. How are you going to switch from a petrodollar into a completely new system without collapsing the old one? How are you going to switch on the US dollar, which is king of everything, without taking down the king, without taking down the petrodollar, without taking everything with it? And what does that require? It needs a massive event. And we're witnessing this. We're living through hell right now. For the last 2 years, that was part of the economic, but it didn't. I don't think it did enough damage. So just remember, you can get prep, but prep stuff is going to go up. This is why we told you a year ago. For the people that already bought this a year ago, that investment has already paid off part of itself, because all of the prices have gone up across the board on everything else. These guys have kept their prices the same. So just remember that. Go over to marfooglenews.com/prep. When you do this, you're not only prepping and getting the stuff that you will need eventually, whether it be a storm or the end of the world. Again, it doesn't have to be chaos and SHTF. It can just be a 7-day storm or something like what happened in Texas, where they didn't have power for 5, 6, 7 days. This comes in handy extremely well. So go over to marfooglenews.com/prep. They still have the $150 off on a 3-month supply. You definitely want to get that before that goes away. The $50 off on a month, that is now no longer there. So you only have the $150 off on the 3-month supply. That is one thing. They haven't raised their prices, but they have taken away discounts. So make sure to get over there while they still have one. And then Irish Rebel, that's pretty freaky. Moxie 71, Maui Racing, again, thank you everybody, really over on DLive. And then we're going to talk about, of course, Russia, and Putin's soldiers shot those who refused to open fire on civilians, and many are deserting, POW's claim. My personal opinion is this is propaganda, along with both sides are just pumping it out left and right. It says morale collapses among Russia's troops. Putin soldiers shot comrades who refused to open fire on civilians, and many are deserting. They have been threatened. Now, I'm not a fan of Russia, but what I will say is I can recognize when this is meant to get an emotional response. And the people that will freak out when I say that are the ones who had an emotional response. They're thinking this is the most evil stuff ever. I bet you that at the very least, Putin is trying to get his people to understand. The thing is they have to do their propaganda to get their soldiers to do it. You don't want an entire military of guys that don't support the cause. That's why, it would make sense if they told those guys that they're going in there to prevent a genocide, because it genuinely would work better if they went in thinking that they're being heroes. It genuinely helps our side if we go in thinking we're protecting a democracy, or we're doing this for the good of the people. It genuinely helps the entire world to get behind this, to have the speech that makes the translator choke up, and the ghost of Kiev, the men and women who valiantly said F you to the big destroyer ship that just wiped them off the planet. And then you find out a couple days later, they surrendered and they're all alive and they're fine. They said F you, and then said, all right, come on in. You see what I mean? Both sides have this, because this is conflict. This is what real war looks like. It's confusing. It's disinfo. It is constant and just utter barrages of information that you don't know it's real, because you have, if this is, two major powers, you're dealing with whole departments that have millions and millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, invested into the information conflict. So look at what they're telling us. They're saying that the morale is low. First of all, military is compartmentalized. This I don't think it would have gotten outside of this one group. Dex, do you get what I'm saying? Like, do you think that this would have spread across the entire Russian army? Or do you think it would only spread unless it went on the internet and they got to it and all of this? Maybe that's why There's talk of Russia separating their internet.
Yeah, maybe. And the other thing to think about is there's no credibility in this person. Certainly, there's a video of the person saying it, but we have no idea that the person is really who they say they are, right? And that they really went through what they said they went through. That's the thing. And it's, it's not like you've got, one football team against another and they've got different colored jerseys on and who's on which team. Like this, Ukraine and Russia are pretty well integrated over the years, and they've got, the families on both sides of the border, and they've gone back and forth before. So it's not like it's not obvious that this is, one side of the aisle versus a different side, right? We don't know. Like this could be an actor for all we know.
Well, okay, so and what do they show? If you look at the comments on every one of these videos where it shows an 18-year-old kid, or sometimes they look like they're 16, and they're saying that they got caught by the Ukrainian side, they came over from Russia, they were told something totally different, they're crying, it constantly, I don't know if you've noticed this, but they've barraged you with, they've put in so many stories about how they're calling their mothers. They're calling their mothers, and then the stories where it says Ukraine is letting the mothers come across to grab their children. Their children. It's constantly put in there that these are 18-year-old boys, and their mothers are coming to grab them by the ear and say, "Get back over here." Do you think that they didn't know what... on the Russian side, a lot of these guys joined the military. On the Ukrainian side, these guys joined the military. Or if they're the people that they just handed weapons... Most of the people that they handed weapons are not being sent to the front lines. They're in a village that are away from the front lines or whatever the heck is going on. They're in a village sitting there with the whatever. Or we don't know exactly how many weapons have actually been given out. They have an official number. They said like 18,000, this and that. But we don't know how much of this is a conflict of information. Like we can't go off. That's the thing. Nobody trusts mainstream information anymore. Nobody trusts the legacy media anymore, and that's my opinion. You can fact check that. I mean, who trusts legacy media? In fact, let's just do a quick survey of the 4,400 that are over on YouTube and the audience over on DLive. About 5,000 with both. Press 1 if you trust. Press 1 if you trust legacy media, 2 if you don't, or 3 if you're undecided. Legacy media being like the 3-letter agencies, Fox, CNN, MSN, BC, all those. 1 if you trust them, 2 if you don't. Should have a moment of silence for that.
But there was one.
And that was a sarcastic one, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure. Somebody had to do it, right?
That same person I saw last week say, "I love the dentist." So, I mean, there's basically 5,000 people, and this contains both chats from both. I mean, this is sad. Isn't that kind of sad that no one believes the legacy media? It's just like, it's horrible. So that's why it's very important. And if you get new people in here, people say, "Oh, well, you're going over mainstream articles." We're not just reading it and then not questioning it. You read it and question, because asking questions is something they don't want you to do. Going over it and having 5,000 people down below talking about it, everyone gets to give their opinion. That is something they don't want. That is why when you post this on Facebook, when you post anything that goes against it, it's fact-checked and removed. So that's why it's a very important part of this is the chat down below is extremely important. Poland agrees to turn over its MiG-29s. Do you want to explain this, Dex? I got to fix a cord over here before it goes out.
Yeah, and absolutely. And this is actually an ever evolving story. So basically, what was funny is I think a couple of days ago, Poland said they weren't going to give up any of their equipment directly to Ukraine. But now what they did was they came out and just out of the blue in a way that we weren't prepared for. We, as in the U.S. Department of Defense and Pentagon and others, weren't prepared for. They said, hey, we'll give up all of our planes and we'll give them to the U.S. Air Force Base in Germany, and then you guys can give them to the Ukraine. And oh, by the way, we need to buy replacements, so we expect you to sell us some replacements that are at least as good, if not better. Obviously, they're looking to get an upgrade. But and all that's well and good, because I think ultimately people were saying, or the people on the NATO side are saying, yeah, we want to get equipment and get it over there to them. But then what has happened is there is sort of this quagmire right now. Poland doesn't want to give it to the Ukraine. They want to give it to the U.S. so the U.S. can give it to the Ukraine. Well, the U.S. and the Pentagon came out and said, hey, we're not sure we know how to actually deliver this, because if we deliver these over to the Ukraine, then we are actively going into an active scene with this equipment, and we would be doing it as the U.S. And we can't do that, because then that's going to tip off this, full-scale conflict that we're trying to avoid. And we said we would stay out of it. So now they're sort of trying to figure out how do they do this, and if they can even do it, which I guess because it's not the same as, say, throwing a bunch of javelins in a UPS box and shipping it over there. Not that that's what they did, but we had no problem sending javelins over there, but apparently taking planes and bringing them over is a different story. So we're going to have to watch and see how this evolves, if they actually are able to get these planes into the Ukraine in a way that doesn't violate or sort of cross that red lines that Putin put out there, and prevent further escalation. That is the ultimate question and the ultimate result here that I think the NATO countries are looking for. And they're even trying to say, oh, by the way, this is not NATO. And I think even the US came back and said, yeah, it's okay if Poland wants to give their planes to the Ukraine directly, as long as they're not doing it as NATO, they're doing it just as Poland. But of course, Poland was like, no, we're giving them to the US. You guys give them to the Ukraine. So just watch how this one evolves, maybe over the next day or two.
Yeah, and like you said about the red lines, they just keep. It's like somebody is Stan Lee over here just drawing up comics, because those red lines keep getting passed over, and I guess we're all kind of just betting that they'll just keep letting them go and hoping that it's all a show and theatrical. But remember, those are the same people that believe 2001 was a show, and that was a real event that had real victims. Barbaric Russian airstrike branded as a 500-kilogram boom boom kills 21, including. Do you see how they do this? How many of these has included that? Have you noticed that? Every single one of them. It's almost like they're not. It's almost like they're not emphasizing any of the ones that don't include those. Right? And I'm sure if this really did happen, this is horrific. But just understand, you've been listening to this system that's, just completely, that you don't trust. Everybody pressed 2 a minute ago. Everybody over the last 3 years has just felt like we're being lied to left and right. And then all of a sudden people believe it the second that it switches over to something else. It's like it's like everybody's on it. The same people that were saying this is BS, they're now on Facebook putting a border around their picture and like, I support this or I support that. And they're basing it off of stuff. Do you remember just a year ago when they would start off anything and everything? If they were talking about a person that was canceled, they would say, this person, a wild and rampant, controversial theorist. I mean, look at how they framed Rogan, right? There's not a single article on one side that does not have some sort of insult within the first sentence. So that's what you get when you're reading the article. The very first thing that's put in the back of your head. So anything they say after that is going to be burned from the second you start reading. That is how they work. Look and just analyze. This is why we analyze the mainstream, because look at what it's doing. And look at how they worded it. The barbaric. What is barbaric? What is? I mean, you could break these down and go into definitions. What does that make you think of? What does the word barbaric mean to you? Barbaric bombardment. And that's the quote they used. Of a residential area in Sumy, Ukraine, with a 500-kilogram boom has left 21 people perished. Now, not doubting that whatever happened. But what I am pointing out is the way that they put everything together and put a bow on it, and they get an elicited response from what they want. They want emotional responses, whether it be for ratings or whether it be for support. It's done on all sides. If you look at the Russian news, they do it to us. If you look at China, like what we covered the other night, China is saying that we have rampant, human rights violations. Every government does this, and it's like once people see that, it's hard to unsee it. Dex, do you get what I mean? I'm not crazy, right?
No, you're not. It's like you can go to english.pravada.ru right now and you can see, how drastically different and what narrative is coming out of the other side. And that's a pretty extreme version of it. But yeah, it's just, it is, they are opposite night and day.
I'm just saying that both sides are just so absolute. It's not even a two-sided thing. This has got the entire planet involved. This has got NATO involved. This has neutral countries like Switzerland jumping in. Like Derek said from Global Witness, it's like if you want this thing to collapse, everybody's on the same page for this one because it's all shutting down. The old system is going down. It's kind of funny because even like last year when all these names leaked out that had all of their money in Swiss bank accounts and all of this, it was like the old cabal just got beat up by a new cabal or something. It's just insane stuff. So what is really happening here? Just absolute insanity. Now, remember when you comment below, I hope to hear from you guys and I hope to hear your opinions. But remember, you guys are a part of this and you help keep this going. So just remember that. All of the work we put into doing the show, try to comment like it's on your grandma's Facebook. Well, depending. I know some of you and my grandma's Facebook, okay? Dex, do you want to talk about some of the web only? And I'm real quick going to go over, of course, the energy. If you guys have not checked this out, the reason why we are definitely saying to go this way is because any way you analyze it, if something does hit the fan, you are going to have a whole lot of desperate people. You are going to have a whole lot of people that will not have anything. And the one thing that is really bad if say, the power goes out is having a loud and extremely, extremely audible generator. Solar generators, not only are they efficient, not only are they portable, this one especially is modular, but they are also silent. There is one right now running our entire show, 2 power bars, all of my music gear, the router, everything. And essentially we did this at first because we had the opportunity because they were working with EMP Shield. There's actually an EMP Shield that goes on the inner and the outer part of the energy, specifically made for this energy solar generator. So you can get that together. That's how we got introduced, and we were lucky because this is one of the most sought after generators out there. And we were extremely lucky because I don't think we would be able to even get a hold of these guys. That they are that busy. So, and they are busy to the point where if you do want a generator, you need to get it essentially now to even receive it because there is a waiting list. So if you want one of these, this is one of the best. If you go for high quality and, of course, extremely fast charging, this is the one to go for. If you, again, you can look at some of the hours. This is for the base unit. You can do things like mod this out to be able to charge faster, or to accept more solar panels to even charge faster than fast. You can charge with solar panels and your quick charger. You can do all sorts of combinations to make get the power that you need in the time that you need. And then, of course, you can stack and use up to 96 batteries with one Flex 1500. My entire show is running off of a base unit with one battery. I'm going to be getting a second one. I'm also going to be getting more solar panels. The coolest part, though, too, is you don't have to go with their proprietary solar panels. I definitely recommend getting solar panels if you want to just do it all in one. But you can also get solar panels from Amazon. You can get them from eBay. You can get them wherever. As long as you have the right cords, then you'll be good. Really, really, really awesome thing. Marfooglenews.com/energy. Make sure to get in as soon as possible. Thank you, everybody that goes over there, because that helps our channel as well when you go over and get this through us. Just like how the ecosystem works on YouTube, when you support affiliates, you support the channel. That's, again, especially channels that are covering stuff like we are. That's, again, a really big way to help and protect yourself. All right, Dex, do you want to tell us how to win an EMP shield and what is going on in the web only?
Absolutely. So head over to marfooglenews.com and click on the thumbnail for the show. Scroll down to that section, yellow bar, it says web only content, and there you will find the rest of the story. If you're on YouTube, just open the description. It's the first link there called show notes. Here we have lots of things that are either too far to one side, too hot for TV. So things happening in mostly the political realm at the moment, but also some additional updates, like, for example, DHS secretly collecting data and on Americans for the last 12 years without a warrant. And what they were doing and what categories they were collecting. So it's kind of interesting if you want to go look into that. Updates on trucks and Musk and other political things that are happening as well. So go take a look. And then right at the bottom, once you get through the rest of the story, the web only content, you will find the way to enter the EMP shield contest. So if you're wanting an EMP shield and you don't have one yet, or you haven't been able to afford one, or you just need an extra one, this is your chance. So come here. You can enter every day. I believe there's 15 or 16 days left in the contest, something like that. But they have multiple entries, so you have more than one chance to win if you just go through the process and do some of the things like, follow a couple of channels, come back every day and re-enter. You can get lots of opportunities to actually increase your odds of winning. So go take a look. It's free. It's right there on marfooglenews.com. And if you're on YouTube, just open that description and click on the show notes link.
Thank you, Dex. And again, thank you. The Seventh Son says the caravan wasn't inside Ukrainian borders. Rather, hey, thanks, Seventh, for supporting. Red Pilled, hey, came out of nowhere. Thank you so much for your massive support. Again, thank you, everybody that has come in and support over on YouTube. Chorcho Dave, anyone else noticed the almost urgent Gen phone push? Why? I would say that everything is. I mean, they turned off the 3G. That's completely off now. I think that it's giving free ones to everything. Did you notice like AT&T is like Note 22, blah 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 to everybody. Give us any phone, doesn't matter how old. You can give them a Nokia with Snake on it, and they'll give you a Note 22, which is like a $1,500 phone or something. Yeah, I have seen that, Chorcho. Patrick Slevin, thank you for the super sticker there. Mystery School says, no division here at home in Daytona. It's bike week, and you can feel the love. Much love from Daytona. Be safe, y'all. You know who I know who will probably be there, and that's probably why she's not here, is Gone Girl 777. Gone Girl 777 has a trike, one of those bad ones that everybody stands around and takes pictures of. Really cool bike. Gone Girl, I hope you're doing okay, and I bet you're having fun if that's the case. And then Corrado Spataro, thank you. Hello, my friends. I wonder what RT private bunker looks like. Canada. Corrado, like basically, is Maria? Yeah, does she get a spot in that now? If she talks smack about RT, is there? Are they going to? Going to RT? Yeah, right. I wonder. Love you, Adam, Dex, and fam. Troy C. Royer, thank you so much for stopping in. Thank you, everybody, for popping in tonight. Ariel, the Wrestling Mermaid. Much love, Foogle fam, from Ariel and Mike. Super glad to see that you guys are having fun together. And then hello, all of you beautiful mother Fooglers. Love ya. Stay safe. Be prepared and pony on. Simply Pony, appreciate you. Irish Rebel, thank you again. Massive support. I know that's not an accident. You again, multiple times this week. Thank you for really going above and beyond. And then Susie Bailey Kupti, thank you so much. Stephen McMahon, Lynn Heistoffer, everybody that has supported our independent venture here. Thank you so much. Love you guys. Dex, thank you for your service tonight.
Much love. Great show, brother.
It is now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro. Over on Marfoogle Jams or D-Live for the rest of the show. The chat continues. If you just like hanging out and chatting with the Foogles, then make sure to join and click on the link that Jay Stone is sharing right now. Jay Stone 78, Ron Hagen, Heidi, well, and up and oh. Jam, oh, want us to, oh, Kathy Pie in a save yourself, sheepo. Oh, everybody knows Vicky Brook and Cindy Jones, my people. Now with the Vicky Rock, nobody gonna give up. Whoa, with the Vicky Bye, nobody gonna give up. Tammy DeWitt, Cat and Turley, everybody so surly. Virginia, Olsen, like a big back Dolan. Oh, gotta bring it back. Oh, hey, oh, oh. Rosetta Stone with the Lord Andrew. Every bit to the outlet, what we do. Soul pick a 2022. A Dean Chandler and the Michelin 2 with the Watchmen.
late 069, 2K7 in the beat at 9. Spectator in the Joe that you know, LOLI with the Boeing moan. Cake rocker, plans do fail. That's why you gotta have a back. Come out, whoop now, gotta bring you back. Hit, whoop back, uncut, cucumber bag. We are, won't fit but that. Sean Samuels and the rest is ass. Hey, gotta put it in a...
Num, 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 num. And it's about time. We've all seen the signs, and it's about time.
Oh, man.
Hold up. I don't know who's still here, but I have something to say. If you haven't checked over Adam Calhoun and Tom McDonald, both got screwed, absolutely screwed over by the record labels. If you haven't checked out their video, essentially they did not believe them that they sold more albums than Kanye sold STEM. They did not believe him. And here's the thing: whether you like Tom McDonald or Adam Calhoun's music, for independent artists, for them to do that just as seriously a group of a couple people, it's one thing that I can understand because we do it with just a few people here. We do better ratings, and we never say that we never brag about it. We'll say it when it needs context. We do better than some CNN daytime shows, and people are like, well, that's because CNN sucks. But that's still a big deal because we don't have a staff of people making $300,000 a year to back us up. We don't have somebody to massage their feet and to get us coffee. It's just us, right? It's just like Mr. Dice says, he's a guy with a laptop in his kitchen that's doing better than CNN, right? So for Tom McDonald and for Adam Calhoun to do a first physical sales, and essentially they saw the numbers for the number one spot, and they said we could beat that. They did beat it. And I guarantee you they did, because Tom, I know that Tom has been beating out these numbers. But guess what? The fact that they don't want Tom McDonald and Adam Calhoun to get that number one spot, they're just doing it because they don't want them to be at the top. They even offered the back end of their website to show that they sold that many. So whether you're a fan or not, people should start fighting for stuff like this because they're controlling everything. They're controlling the narrative of everything, even music, and music is the one thing that shouldn't be touched. So you guys make sure to make a fuss. Go over to the video and then do whatever they ask as far as if they need you to say, hey, I bought a record, then go over and do it. You guys get me. All seen the signs, and it's about time. We've all seen the signs, and it's about